We can't find any evidence of it. You know, we can see that they have bare wiring hanging down from the ceilings in the basement, but we can't see any evidence of a ghost. And then there are other houses where we'll go in and we come out with some of the most amazing pictures and amazing evidence we've ever been able to find.
It starts off with personal accounts and experiences that are happening, strange things that can't be explained at the location. So we set someone aside, let them do the interviews while we conduct an unbiased, objective environmental survey. And in that survey, we end up tracking down and we end up with some strange stuff, like we'll catch a strange photo or we'll catch a strange energy reading that we can't associate with anything in particular. We just can't find a source for it. It's just a stray anomaly.
Or in the case of the restaurant over here, we actually saw a ladder shaking that we weren't near, you know, rapping noises. So, you know, it's...
knocking noises, answering questions.
Yeah, responding to us.
Did you used to live here? Not once if you used to live here? Please knock once if you used to live here. If you did. Was that you?
That was him.
That was him.
Is that you, Roger?
What?
Is that you?
No.
Is that you, Phil?
No. That was awesome.
Did you get that?
I got the end of it, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. You're my favorite ghost of today.
That was cool. All of the instruments that we have verify readings, energy readings, anomalies. And when we track down an anomaly, we back off and we document it using photo and video. Things like a digital camera or a 35mm camera. An electrostatic detector. And what it does is it picks up the energy readings, the static of the air around it, and takes individual readings. And with this, it's very good for any spirit-like activity, ghosts and stuff, because even if they're an electromagnetic field, any energy field passing through the air inherently creates static. So that is actually far more reliable than any other device that we have.
This is my favorite piece of equipment. It is an EMF meter, and this is something that you'll see people use on every paranormal show out there. It allows us to measure the amount of energy and electricity in the air. So it'll register lamps, air conditioners, appliances, but sometimes ghosts appear in that range, and so when we manage to isolate a big cloud of energy in the middle of the room and there's no apparent cause, you know, this allows us to see that and label that as paranormal or suspicious. This is probably like the neatest piece of equipment we own. This is also an electrostatic detector. What it allows us to do is audibly hear all the RF fields and the EMF fields, and it sort of puts a noise to it. And lots of times it's just crackly static, but sometimes you can hear clicking, like when a cell phone updates or wireless internet, it'll be like a clicking. But we've also heard laughter coming from this. We've heard talking. We've heard all sorts of weird noises, and so that allows us to hear it before our equipment may even pick it up.
What it does is the phenomena known as electronic voice phenomena, or EVP, that is commonly a ghostly voice that's heard upon playback. You hear it in real time through this because it translates electromagnetic fields and RF fields in real time into an audio signal of what they sound like.
Paranormal research can mean the difference between the natural world and the supernatural. A recent paranormal investigation took place at the Jefferson County Historical Society in Watertown. The former mansion of the Paddock family has its own unusual stories to tell.
The house was built in 1876, and it was the home of Edwin and Olive Paddock. It was designed by John Hose and built by John Griffin and completed in 1878. The Paddocks lived here their entire lives. Mr. Paddock died in 1909 and Mrs. Paddock died in 1922. At the end of Mrs. Paddock's life, both of the buildings on either side of her house have been torn down, and she willed that her house would not be torn down, and so she bequeathed it to the Jefferson County Historical Society at the end of her life. One of the legends of the house stems from Mrs. Paddock's love of the house and her insistence that the house would not be torn down on her death. One was from a woman who was walking down the sidewalk one evening and swears that she saw a figure of a woman standing in the window looking out onto the street. The woman was clad in white with a sort of backlit glow to her. And when the woman noticed that people were watching her, she is reported to have turned around and walked into the gift shop and disappeared. History in itself is dead. It's not alive. It only lives in the memory of the people who retell its stories and in the objects that we use to retell its stories. So the important role we think the Historical Society serves is to keep those objects, number one, but then to keep retelling the stories of those objects so that we keep the history of the community alive.
For some, it is a beautiful vantage point to view Lake Ontario, but the Sackets Harbor Battlefield State Park is also a place where unusual occurrences have been reported. Site of a pivotal battle in the War of 1812, some have said that on some nights they have smelled gunpowder and have heard musket shots in the distance.
Sackets Harbor Battlefield is the site of an 1813 battle between the British and the American forces. British landed about 1,000 men just down the way there at Horse Island, and they fought a battle here on May 29th, 1813.
But it's as a living museum that makes history come alive for visitors to the Sackets Harbor Battlefield State Park, and solemn tribute is paid to those who fell.
But this is blood-covered ground. It wasn't on the scale of tens of thousands, but a lot of Americans gave their lives right here on the ground we're standing on right here. At the height of the Battle of Sackets Harbor, the fighting was furious. How important is that? When people die in defense of their country, to preserve that. We do our best to give honor to those who gave their lives upon this ground.
Whether someone thinks what they've experienced is real or imagined, the stories passed on from generation to generation in the North Country become part of what we are, part of Folklore and Frost.
I mean, everyone either has a place that they believe is haunted or they know someone who, you know, has a place that's haunted. It's become, it's not that haunted houses are increasing, it's that people are more willing to admit that they've got some things going on too, and they're more willing to admit these days because of, you know, the TV shows and movies and the popularity of just speaking about it.
Well, I must say I am duly frightened, and I hope you are as viewers tonight. Let's talk with the people who you saw in that video, or at least many of them tonight, and maybe get a little bit of background on what this is all about. Let's start with Cheri. And Cheri, if I may, I'll read a little bit about what the book promotion says, which I think is kind of interesting. And this is on Cheri's first effort, which is called Haunted Northern New York, and we'll talk more about the other renditions of this that you have going. But this is a quote. This fascinating and well-researched collection of spine-tingling accounts of paranormal phenomena focus on the restless spirits that haunt upstate New York's rustic and weathered region known as the North Country. What makes these stories so chilling is that each one of them is factual. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, ghost stories are subjective, and, you know, the people that I spoke to for all of the books that I've written so far, when I interview them, they're very genuine in what they're telling me, and they truly believe in what they're telling me. So, I mean, to say a ghost story is factual is, you know, a lot of times it's a legend, you know, that is passed on through the years. But for the most part, I think the people are very, you know, I mean, I've believed everyone that I've spoken to for the stories that I've ended up using.
They believe it, certainly.